Welcome to Network Africa. It's our last Friday of the month edition of the program. Coming up, what does the British exit from the European Union mean for the African community? Then unsafe roads continue to claim lives, but what can be done to manage the situation? And later, some bad news regarding the damaged flight recorders of Egypt Air Flight MS-804. Thanks for joining us on the program. I am Bisi Adebayo. The United Kingdom and the world at large woke up to the news that the United Kingdom has opted to exit the European Union. As a result, the British Prime Minister David Cameron, who has long been an advocate for the UK to remain in the EU, announced that he'll resign by October. Prime Minister Cameron says he will attempt to steady the ship over the coming weeks and months, but that fresh leadership is needed. 52% of the country voted to leave the EU, while 48% voted to remain, despite London, Scotland and Northern Ireland backing the staying-in campaign.
A negotiation with the European Union will need to begin under a new Prime Minister. And I think it's right that this new Prime Minister takes the decision about when to trigger Article 50 and start the formal and legal process of leaving the EU. I will attend the European Council next week to explain the decision the British people have taken and my own decision. And I will do everything I can to help. I love this country and I feel honoured to have served it. And I will do everything I can in future to help this great country succeed.
The world is global, and in truth, what happens to one affects all. Now, joining us to explain what the Brexit means to the African community is lawyer and human rights activist Mr. Dayo Fadino. He is in London, where all the action is at the moment. Mr. Fadino, thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Good afternoon.
Is the Brexit a good move for the African community?
Hello? Hello? Oh, sorry. Good afternoon. Hello?
Mr. Dayo, is the Brexit move good for the African community? How does it affect the African community?
Well, thank you very much, Cynthia. I'm quite honored and obliged to actually be on your program this afternoon. In my honest opinion, I do not think Brexit would be of any help at all whatsoever for the Afro-Caribbean community in the UK. You see, I remember when the campaign was actually on regarding whether the UK should Brexit or remain within the EU fold. There were so many Africans who were of the opinion that it would be better for them if the UK could actually opt out of the European Union. My strongest opinion concerning that, which I had then and which I still have now, is that they were utterly and totally wrong. And with all due respect, the Africans don't think that it would be better for them if UK should opt out. Living in Cloud Cuckoo Land, when you actually look at the track record of the UK as far as the immigration rules and regulations of this country are concerned, as we speak, the UK government has tightened the rules to do with so many Africans and Caribbeans coming into the UK. You are not particularly allowed to come in as regularly as possible anymore. Even within the UK, you are branded more or less a second-class citizen, going by what most of the immigration rules and regulations state at this point. You'll be made to understand that before you could actually now make any application for indefinite leave to remain in the UK, you would have to cough out £2,000 of fees before you could even to the Home Office, before you could actually make that application to the Home Office. Now, these are things that were happening before Brexit. And honestly, I'm very, very worried of what would be happening if the likes of Michael Gove or Boris Johnson, who are to the far right of the Tory party, take over the arms of government in Downing Street and start running the affairs of Downing Street. I'm so very worried about that. Hence the reason why I feel we're not really going to be better off. And one other thing we should also take on board is the situation to do with so many rights that touch and concern Africans and Caribbeans in the UK. Things like maternity rights, things like pension rights, employment rights, which were guaranteed by EU directives for people to at least be able to point to something that will protect them at work. Opting out of the EU, I cannot see that happening at all. They would not protect those rights at all because they're now going to be out of the EU. It will be a big problem for Africans.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Fadina, for talking to us on Network Africa.
Yes, and what about
Now, without surprise, different reactions have swirled the development, with France and Germany calling the move a tough test for Europe and a watershed moment for EU, respectively. However, let's have a quick listen to what the UK Independence Party leader and one of the leading Leave campaigners, Nigel Farage, has to say about the outcome.
We now need a Brexit government, a government that gets on with the job, a government that begins the renegotiation of our trade relationship, a government that will be mindful that already many of the German car manufacturing unions have said, let's get on and do a deal. Let's go on selling motor cars and wine and cheese with each other. But a government also that at the same time uses the opportunity of Brexit. And the opportunity is we're now freed to start making our own trade deals and associations with the rest of the world. Step towards the Europe.
Meanwhile, some analysts are also of the opinion that there could be security implications as regards the British exit. Joining us to explain that is security and terrorism expert David Ocho. David, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, you had mentioned earlier that some terror groups could strike the UK to prove a vulnerability point. Could you kindly clarify that quickly?
I mean, what we have to understand is that, you know, the United Kingdom has always been dependent on other European states, you know, for information in terms of intelligence and surveillance. And we know that although the EU was not meant to be a security architecture, the fact that, you know, the United Kingdom was doing business with other European states, you know, meant that, you know, they also benefited from security and intelligence. And by leaving the EU, then you leave yourself vulnerable, which means, you know, yes, you might be able to negotiate, you know, a deal with other European states in terms of intelligence. But that is not the case at the moment. You know, they could simply refuse to share that intelligence with you based on the fact that, you know, it doesn't have any interest for them. So this could be taken as an advantage, you know, for groups like ISIL, who can easily penetrate, you know, the United Kingdom, despite the fact that, you know, they've left, you know, the free movement. So we may see a kind of, you know, a redress, you know, by other EU members, you know, in sharing intelligence, which is very vital in terms of the security architecture in the UK.
At this point, how can the EU remain safe? How can they manage the situation?
Well, the thing is, you know, at this point, we're still on the point of hypothesis because, you know, Article 15 has still not been triggered, which would give an exit for the UK. But what the EU has to take into consideration is that despite the fact that the United Kingdom has left, you know, as a member of the EU, it is for the better for all European states, you know, to share information and intelligence and surveillance, you know, in order for them to fight ISIL, which is a common enemy. So I don't think this idea of UK leaving the common market and stopping the flow of immigrants and services should actually deter the EU members from sharing information and intelligence with the UK. But I think, you know, there's going to be some reluctance, and this is key in terms of, you know, the kind of future that the UK is expected to face in the nearest circumstances.
All right, thank you very much, David, for your time.
Thank you very much.